Oh my gosh, friends, I am so excited. I have here with me today. She is the author of a slew of books for children and young adults, including two of my all time favorites, which we will discuss later. She's the author of the Newbery Honoree National Book Award finalist, Penn USA Literary Award winning, and best selling The Underneath, as well as the National Book Award finalists, The True Blue Scouts of Sugarman, Swamp Keeper, and many picture books, including Counting Crows. And yes, I'm reading this off of a bio on the internet. It's not Catherine or Katerina or Kate, it's just Kathi Appelt. How did I do?
You did great. Thank you.
did I do okay on the
You make me
pronunciation?
sound smart.
I'm blown away by your bio. That was a tiny little bit of what I found.
Thanks.
So many accomplishments, and I'm so happy that you're here with me chatting today.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a
Thank
pleasure and
you.
an honor.
How are you holding up with all of this craziness that's going
Really,
on?
really, I'm doing fine. My husband and I, our kids are grown. They're sheltering in their places, and so unlike so many people right now who are having to homeschool and juggle work at home and childcare and all of that. I mean, Ken and I, my husband and I, are really, really fortunate. I mean, we really are, and I clearly understand that. I feel very, very, very blessed and grateful for that. I confess that not being busy is not necessarily good for me. I tend to
Mhm.
do better if I'm really busy, and that includes travel because I've done so much travel in my life, and since that's totally on hiatus now, that's a huge section of my life that I'm not doing right now. So that that feels odd, but and at the same time like a gift because I'm one of those people that I love to travel, but I complain about it. I mean,
Right.
it's like, oh, I wish I was at home, and then now I'm at home and I'm like, oh, I wish I could go somewhere.
Well,
but
and that's one of the things I've talked to a lot of people about is and even a lot of my friends are just natural, including me. I'm an introvert,
mhm,
but
I,
something about the extended forced isolation, and I just wonder how that affects different people in different ways in terms of like their creative process and maybe some of their routines that they have. I don't
I
know.
I think there are going to be a lot of studies when this is done about how people handled this, what it meant for their psyche, for what it meant for them physically, emotionally, and all of that. I think, there are probably people right now who are starting to really study human reaction to all of this. It's going to be interesting, I think, to see what comes of it. Overall, I feel like even though we're isolated, that we're all in this together, that this is something we can do if we all pull together and do the right thing. My sister used to always say, we're Americans, not Americans.
Right.
And so I feel encouraged by that. I have to remind myself of that once in a while. Yesterday I did a Zoom thing with some of my friends, and we were talking about our lives and how we were being impacted and all of that. And really, one of the things that occurs to me is that it seems like everything is bigger. Like just bringing in the groceries, for example. Who would have ever thought that we'd have to leave the groceries on the front step, wipe them all down, discard the bags and all of that before we brought them into the house. So that makes the groceries seem even bigger, than they ever were. So it's like everything is illuminated now, and so there's some wonder and awe in that if we can learn to look at it that way. But our emotions feel bigger, the risk feel bigger, everything
Mm.
feels bigger to me, even though at a micro level we're really shrunk. I mean, as far as our society, our economy, all of that has shrunken. So there's this kind of weird paradox kind of thing going on, where everything is illuminated, but at the same time we're kind of crunched and crushed and all of that. So it's an odd dynamic, I think.
That's so true. And when I'm listening to you, I've been thinking a lot about just the reflection piece that you were kind of going through there.
Mm-hmm.
But as that relates to what children are going through right now and kind of their perspective and what they're seeing, and I've kind of tried to put myself into their place and think, okay, mom and dad are not working and they're home all the time. My school has closed. Mom, they were arguing about money and, not having a job or whatever the things are, that they're dealing with. It has to just be.
I think it's really challenging and scary and all of that. I've tried to think what it would be like if my sons were still small and we were having to go through this. And, we would still be lucky because we have room outside. We have a backyard, we have a quiet street. They'd be able to get on their bikes and at least go up and down the street. They could go outside and climb the tree or whatever. I mean, they would have that, at least that. Not everybody even has that, going on. And we're in a warm part of the country, so the weather is not a huge issue. We don't have to bundle people up and all of that. So, but just it must make the days seem so long, for both parent and child, that, oh, here we are stuck. So I just can't even imagine what it's like. And I mean, I can imagine it. Don't get me wrong. I can imagine it, but my heart is just with all those parents and teachers and especially kids, because I just can't imagine how hard it is for them.
Well, and as a teacher, I'm a reading and writing teacher, and so
Mhm.
what I've tried really, what I am trying to do as this kind of unfolds is to make things really more about, this isn't the word I'm looking for, but I guess just therapeutic in a way, therapeutic writing and reading experiences where it's
Right.
not about mastering some standard, but it's more about uh, what you and I have been doing is just reflecting on how we can maybe adjust and acclimate temporarily, hopefully, to this change.
Exactly. And I think the value of a book has never been higher.
Mm,
Those of us who treasure books, we know, or who are, love books, know how wonderful it is to just slip into the pages of a book and the rest of the world goes away. And so, if any parents are listening to me, I would just say, don't even worry about the reading level or whether it's required. Don't go there. Just hand a great book to a kid, if you can. And I think this is a time when the ebooks are really a great value. You have access to them online. There's lots of free books out there. So I think, it's just a great time to really get to see the real value of books and to tap into that value, because I think we underestimated them to a large
mhm.
extent. And so many kids are like, oh, a book, it seems like a chore. And I'm sorry for those kids. I feel like they haven't been given an opportunity to actually choose what they want to read. And so I'm a big advocate of, kids being able to choose their books. But yeah, the value of them has never been higher. And as well as great movies, art. Art has been, I love seeing folks like Mo Willems and Jeff Zentner out there doing art lessons. I love that they're, leading kids in those kind of artsy things. I think Rami Lai is also doing, daily kinds of art activities. So I think that's going to get us through, honestly.
I do too, and I really feel that, and as a teacher, it, what you're saying about it just seems like a perfect time, a perfect opportunity, I guess, if we're going to look at the silver lining,
Hmm.
to kind of just allow kids to explore and discover, and for those who have not yet, that you mentioned, let them have more time to just kind of discover and find their passion within reading and writing, and the things that they
Hmm.
love about reading, and not
Yeah,
necessarily things that are assigned to them.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Have a family book club, everybody read the same thing or read something different and then share, what they loved about a text, what they didn't. It can be as simple as that. You don't have to analyze it. You don't have to, say, oh, look how this author used a metaphor, for example. You don't have to go there. Just go to, what the book means to you, why it appealed to you or why it didn't. It doesn't have to get technical.
Well, and right now, and you touched on this, there are so many resources available to
Right.
parents,
Oh, absolutely.
ebooks.
Actually, actually, for each of my novels, I've got a Pinterest page that has all my research sources and videos and all kinds of things on
Oh
for
my
each book.
goodness,
Yeah, so
that's amazing.
those are right there. There's reading guides, all kinds of things there. Um,
Okay.
yeah, my I have a research assistant who works for me from time to time, and she's become the queen of Pinterest. And she's put a bunch of things up there for me, and it's fun to go through them.
I would love to share those links with everybody if that's okay whenever
Sure. Oh,
we,
of
yeah,
course.
when we
Yeah,
post this.
I think you can get to them just by, Pinterest slash the underneath or Pinterest slash keeper or whatever.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Or
Well, and
just
I
go
had
to my,
mentioned, speaking of the underneath, I had mentioned two of my all-time favorites. The underneath is one of them, but I'm going to tell you that they're my number one, my top, um, and it is in my all-time favorite list now and always will be, because it's one of those that, boy, you're reading it and it just feels like you're reading poetry to me, and I am so in love with Maybe a Fox.
oh, thank you.
I'm going to tell you that book was one that I could not put down. It was
Well, thank
amazing.
you so much. Allison and I worked really hard on that book together. That was a collaboration. And it's interesting about that book because the way we wrote it, we initially said, I mean, for years we had said, let's write a book together. And so finally, Allison sent me the poem that is the epigraph, of the book. There's a poem right at the beginning, and it's about a fox. And when I got it, I said maybe we could use this as a starter. Let's think about this fox. And so initially, what we did is I wanted to write from the point of view of a human, which I had not been writing in for a while. So and I wanted to try. Really wanted to work on first person point of view because I am not a first person girl, and so I thought this would be a great practice. And then Allison wanted to write from the point of view of an animal, so she chose the fox, and I chose the sister. And I would write a chapter and send it to Allison, and she would write a chapter and send it back to me. And so we gave each other a week for each chapter. So initially, the draft came super fast. I mean, we would just bounce it back and forth. We eventually, after a few months, we had a total rough draft. And so we got together. I went up to, she lives in Minneapolis. And so I went to Minneapolis and we sat on her porch and hammered out, a rough plot because it was basically plotless. I mean, it was kind of like
Right.
vignettes. Um, so we had to work, hammer out what felt like a plot. And it initially was a YA book. And our agent essentially said, I think you'd be better off taking this to a younger set just because of the magic in it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so so, and I mean, I'm not sure if that was the reason, but she felt like it was a younger book. And so we rethought it. And of course, I wound up not writing in first person. But altogether, as fast as that initial draft came, it took us 5 years to get it done.
Wow.
And then interestingly, when it was all finished, we were talking to each other, and I said, I don't know who this book is for, Allison. I have no idea. And she said, I know, I don't either. And I said, I don't even know if it's my book. And she said, I feel the same way. I think it's a book that has its own whatever, its own being, its own dynamism. It's
Mhm.
not a book that either of us would have written alone. And so it's this odd thing that happened, that a book that would never have been in the world if we hadn't worked on it together. So I love that part of it.
Well, and there is a real uniqueness to that book as well. I've recommended it to students before, and tried to give them a short little book talk, book trailer on the book, and um, I would. It was kind of difficult to do. So at some point, it would really just come down to, okay, you just have to read it. Just trust
Oh,
me.
thank you
You just have to.
so much. Yeah.
Um, but
Uh,
I'll tell you one thing I love about, um, and one of the reasons that those are two of my favorites is connects to something else that I feel is really important about books right now. We're living in a day and age where people are fighting with each other over toilet paper.
right.
And you know the connection with your characters that I was able to make, both humans and animals, um, um, I guess made me think about, sorry, over the past couple of years, I've seen a lot of articles circulating about how fiction stories help grow more empathetic children, more empathetic adults.
I
You know?
hope that's right. I hope that's true. I mean, that is one of the reasons why I write about animals, or I have animal characters, is because in some ways, they're I don't want to say they're easier to get inside of, but I think they allow us to set aside politics, set aside you know human issues, and just get right to where is our heart? Where's your heart? Where's your care? Where's your tenderness? It's interesting with the underneath, in that Ranger, the dog, and then Garface, the antagonist, have really similar situations, very badly treated, both of them. And yet one character chose to turn towards the light and the other didn't. And they both had those choices. And so, but in all of the back and forth that I've gone through with the underneath, people have a hard time empathizing with Garface. They empathize with Ranger, and yet he had a similar um, background as a dog, and so it's been really interesting that somehow cruelty towards another person is not as disturbing as cruelty towards an animal.
Isn't
And
that true?
maybe part of that is
Yeah.
because they feel the animal has no choice in the matter. That it's not an animal thing to be intentionally cruel.
Mm-hmm.
Although if you ever watch a cat torment a lizard, you might think differently.
Change your mind about that.
Yeah. So I don't know, what the answer is, but I think, writing animal characters, that does allow you to really, look at the world from a different point of view that you might not see through human eyes.
Well, and right now, that kind of a filter just seems, with the political unrest that we have in the world, and
Mhm.
in our nation, and everything that's going on with this
Right,
quarantine, and I
right.
mean, we're living through we are living through right now a future chapter in history books,
Oh
and
yeah, definitely.
It's a great time for a little boost of empathy, you know.
Totally agree with you on that. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
um, you know, when you were walking through, you describing the process for Maybe a Fox is so interesting to me. Um, and I know, like on that particular project, you said that the first draft, the initial draft, came together actually pretty fast.
Hmm.
Um, one of the things that, as a writing teacher of 9-year-olds,
Hmm.
that I have a difficult time, and I try to just instill into them, is this idea that most successful people can look back at their path and see it littered with unsuccessful attempts, or maybe just attempts in progress, you know.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
a lot of times kids just want to grab a hold of an idea, and no matter what, even if it's not working, I'm going to force this thing. You know? do, do, as you go through your process, I'm sure you've had dead ends before, and where's kind of that balance where you say, okay, I'm going to let go of this thing, you know?
Oh God. Usually, usually, well, I tell you honestly, this is true. With Angel Thieves, my editor literally ripped it out of my hands. She was like, "Kathy, stop. We have to send this to the printer." And even after it went, I wanted to make changes. I mean, you can make a change after a book comes out, and in actuality, the paperback book for Angel Thieves has got a minor change, and I don't know if anybody will catch it, but anyway, so, but most of my books require 20 to 30 revisions. And not every revision is a total rewrite. Sometimes it's just one area that I'm looking at. But the thing about a novel is usually if you adjust one thing, it's like a domino effect. Everything has to be re-examined. And so, yeah, I always, you know, every time I write a book, I start out with this false hope that I'm going to get it right the first time. That's every author's dream.
Right? One
And
shot, and then it's like done.
sometimes, what comes out first time actually works. I mean, that I've seen it happen. It's happened to me. Not a novel, but I had a little picture book. It was a board book. This is years and years ago. My editor called one afternoon and said, "Kathy, would you write, a picture book that's all in rhyme, language rich, 14 lines, 14 lines. That's all it is," because it was a board book. And I said, "Sure, I can do that. No problem." So it was a Friday afternoon and I hung up and I wrote 14 lines. And I mean, they were pretty solid 14 lines. And, um, and I sent them to my editor and she was like, "Yay, this is perfect, except for the last two lines." And I knew the last two lines were a little shaky, but I thought, well, it won't take much to fix those last two lines. Well, a year later, and like 30 rewrites at least of those last two lines, the first 12 lines were fine, but those last two lines, I can't tell you how often I rewrote those. And then finally, one day I was in go the the takeout line at Popeye's Chicken, and I was just kind of waiting my turn, and all of a sudden it came to me. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I just figured out those last two lines," so I had to hurry home and you know change the last two lines. But it was a year and many attempts at those last two lines before it was right. So
And that
so I
really
kind of got to come
underscores,
up and
it's truly, that underscores how much of it is, it's a craft, where you're,
yeah.
and I try to instill that in my kids, that it's okay if, you're, as you're working through this, that it's kind of a hot mess. It's like, it's,
Absolutely.
you know they get really stressed
Absolutely.
out that it doesn't look right.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I always kind of feel like I'm at a loss when I finish a project, because I guess there's a part of me that really loves digging back in and trying to make the story better and better with each pass. Sometimes I do. Sometimes it's damaging. I mean, I have gone into a draft and caused more harm than good,
Mm.
and had to rethink and step back and go, oh, that was a good idea maybe, but it didn't work. So yeah, and honestly, I'm talking about all these revisions and stuff, but I have friends that read my stuff. I mean, I don't do it in the void at all or in a vacuum, because I have a critique group that has no problem telling me where I've gone off the track, or what they think is needs attention. So and I depend on them, and I don't always agree with them. Like sometimes I'm like, what? You're just not getting it, and then I sit back and like, okay, there's a reason she's not getting it.
Right,
What
right.
is the reason? And so,
That has to
so
be
I
very
really,
helpful to you. Yeah.
oh yeah, definitely, definitely,
Well,
yeah.
and that's one of the things that that we do in class as well, is when we're sharing our work with each other and that sort of
Hmm.
thing. And one of the challenges that we have right now is with our students, the processes that they have developed personally, their creative processes, a lot of it is has depended on human connection in the classroom, where we're sharing with each
Right,
other and engaging with each other. So it's been very
right,
challenging taking all of
right,
this you know to an
right.
online platform.
Yes, yes, I can see that. My critique group is actually meeting next week via Zoom. So, and although we do have one member of our group that lives in Canada, so we've been doing it like that a little bit. She Skypes into our meetings. So this is the first time all five of us, are meeting virtually. But so yeah, yeah,
Well,
it's a new approach, but I miss being together. I miss, just the chit chat that goes with being in a room together. I really do.
yeah, me too. Hopefully it will end soon and we can
Yeah.
get back to
If we all do
normal
our
life.
part, if we all stay inside and keep our distance from each other, it'll be
Absolutely.
faster. The more of us that really do that, the better it'll be.
Well, do you have anything? I know you mentioned. Well, uh-oh, I think I might have lost you. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. Um, I'm not sure what happened to my screen. Give me just 1 second. I'm sorry. Okay.
No problem.
Um, you had mentioned earlier something very exciting about your newest book. It's your newest, right?
I have.
No?
I'm working. I mean, I just finished one. It's not out yet, and my editor hasn't even seen it. It's with my agent right now. Um, but yeah, I'm excited about it. It's I can't talk about it too much, but it's based on the Texas Camel Corps, or the U.S. Army Camel Corps. Um, in about 10 years before the Civil War, the U.S. Army did an experiment using camels as pack animals, to cross from, say, San Antonio to San Diego across the desert. And so it was an Army experiment to see if they would be better pack animals than horses and mules. And they were based here in Texas at Camp Verde, which is a little bit north of San Antonio. And so that's the book that I just finished. It's a middle grade, and it's has to do with one of those camels.
Is it it's like, is it historical fiction or
Yes,
is okay,
definitely.
okay, okay. Oh gosh.
Yes, definitely. But I mean, the characters are all animals. There's basically one human character, and he doesn't play a huge role. I mean, he is a significant character, but and he's based on a real person. So yeah, it's based on a true story.
That is really exciting. I can't wait for
Yeah.
do you have a release date on that one yet or
No, not
no?
yet.
Okay.
No, I'm
But
I'm guessing 2022, probably spring of 22.
about the time we're released from our quarantine,
No,
we'll
no, I hope not. Hopefully there'll be a vaccine by then.
well, hey, Kathy, you had also mentioned, and I was really excited about this, that you were so graciously going to offer to a few of our viewers, and you said it
The
just came out of
paperback.
paperback.
I just got the paperback copies of Angel Thieves, and I would love to sign, 3 of them and mail them out. And of course, I'll wait until it's safer to mail. But yeah, and it's. I think the presentation of the book is just gorgeous. They put this kind of lap
Oh,
here,
it looks beautiful.
and so it's really pretty. So it's a
Uh,
YA. It's for older kids, but yeah, I'd love to send out some copies of it to
that that is so exciting.
yeah,
So I will pick 3 people and send those names to you.
great.
So all you have to do is either like or share this video, or if you see it on Facebook, you can share the post, and I will pick somebody randomly and send those names to Kathy. Kathy, that is awesome that you would do that, and it's
So
also
glad to do it.
amazing that you spent this time with me this morning. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I really, really, really appreciate it.
It was fun. So
Uh,
thank you guys, and take care. Be safe. Everybody be safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks,
all
Kathy.
right. Bye.
Bye-bye.